Europe is facing a diplomatic humiliation it never imagined. Sidelined, shut out, and publicly dismissed, not just by Moscow, but allegedly by Washington too. Russia has delivered a blunt, almost brutal message. It will never talk to the European Union's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas. Not now, not later, not ever. And according to the Kremlin, the United States feels the same way. Hello and welcome. I am Nikita Kapoor and you are watching Decode. And in this episode, we decode, is the European Union and Kaja Kallas being deliberately locked out of peace talks, and has Europe made itself diplomatically irrelevant? This explosive claim comes from Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov just days after the first round of three-way talks between the United States, Russia and Ukraine. Negotiations held in Abu Dhabi. And here's the detail that is rattling Brussels. The European Union was not invited. Despite spending over 100 billion euros on Ukraine in military, financial and humanitarian aid, according to figures compiled by the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, Europe was nowhere near the table where peace was being discussed. In an interview, Dmitry Peskov did not use diplomatic language at all. He called the current European Union leadership incompetent, accusing Brussels of actively damaging the system of international relations. But then came the line that sent shockwaves through European capitals. Dmitry Peskov said, "How can you discuss anything with Kaja Kallas? Neither we will ever discuss anything with her, nor will the Americans. And this is obvious. We can only wait until she leaves." This is not a snub, this is a political shutdown. According to Russia, the European Union's corridors of power are filled with what Peskov described as semi-literate, incompetent functionaries. Leaders, he says, who cannot grasp today's geopolitical realities at all. Harsh words, but they reveal something deeper. Because while Washington, Moscow and Kyiv are quietly talking, Europe, the largest donor to Ukraine, is watching from the sidelines. And Brussels is furious. According to reports by Politico, Europe and Financial Times, European Union officials are privately fuming right now. Their argument is simple. Europe paid the price. Europe took the economic hit. Europe sent the weapons. So why is Europe not shaping the end game? The answer lies in how diplomacy works, not how Brussels wishes it worked. Peace negotiations are not reward ceremonies. They are power exercises. And right now, the countries that matter at the table are the ones who can stop the war, not just fund it. The United States controls Ukraine's military lifeline. Russia controls escalation. Ukraine controls consent. The European Union controls sanctions and money, power tools, but indirect ones. And that brings us to the center of this very storm. Kaja Kallas, former Prime Minister of Estonia and now the Vice President of the European Commission. She is one of Europe's most outspoken Russia hawks. Since taking over as the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs, she has taken an uncompromising stance. More weapons for Ukraine, tougher sanctions on Russia, zero territorial compromise, no ceasefire without Russian defeat. These are her goals. She has repeatedly argued that any negotiation with Moscow rewards aggression. Kaja Kallas has been among the strongest opponents of even exploratory peace talks unless Russia accepts Ukraine's full demands. That position has earned her praise in Eastern Europe, but it has also created a big problem. Because diplomacy requires flexibility, and Kaja Kallas has offered none. From Russia's perspective, Kaja Kallas is not a negotiator. She is an adversary. Moscow sees her as ideologically fixed, openly hostile, and uninterested in any sort of compromise. In Kremlin logic, talking to her would be pointless because the outcome is predetermined. And here's the key point. Russia does not need to convince Europe to stop fighting. It needs to convince the United States of America. And that is why the US is at the table and the European Union is not. Now, this is the part that stings the most. Washington has not publicly contradicted Dmitry Peskov's claims. According to analysis from the Atlantic Council and Council on Foreign Relations, the United States' priority right now is conflict management, not alliance symbolism. American policymakers know something Europe refuses to accept time and again. There is no military victory without unacceptable escalation. And any peace process will involve uncomfortable compromises, something Kaja Kallas has openly rejected. Last year, she dismissed Donald Trump's proposed peace roadmap, warning that territorial concessions would be a deadly trap. She also publicly criticized Donald Trump's Greenland comments, saying transatlantic ties had taken a big blow. In short, she managed to anger both Russia and the United States. And in geopolitics, that is a dangerous place to be. The backlash is not just external, it is internal as well. Hungary and Slovakia, long critics of Brussels' Russia policy, are openly rebelling. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico recently mocked the European Union, comparing it to a massage parlor. Lots of talk, no results, and explicitly called on Kaja Kallas to resign. Hungary's Viktor Orban has repeatedly accused Brussels of pushing Europe toward endless war with no exit strategy. According to European Council on Foreign Relations, war fatigue is growing across the continent, economically and politically as well. And that makes Kaja Kallas's hardline posture increasingly unpopular now. Let's be clear, this is not about personal insults. This is about strategic relevance. The European Union built its Ukraine policy around moral clarity. Aggression must be punished, borders must not change. But wars don't end on morality alone. They end on leverage, timing, and compromise. By refusing to even discuss what a negotiated settlement might look like, Brussels boxed itself out. And Moscow, with Washington's quiet acceptance, exploited that. If peace talks move forward without Brussels, the implications are enormous. Europe funds wars but doesn't shape peace. Europe pays the cost but loses influence. Europe speaks loudly but negotiates nowhere. Russia's message is brutal. America's silence is telling. And Europe's exclusion is no longer symbolic, it is strategic. So the real question is not whether Brussels likes this reality. The question is, can Europe afford leaders who win arguments but lose seats at the table? Because in geopolitics, funding a war does not guarantee control over peace. And Europe is learning that lesson the hard way. What do you think? Tell us in the comment section below.